Is Boruto in Tubular Vortex an overpowered character? Well, that's a question I aim to address in today's video because ever since Boruto fought Jura in chapter 23, he appears to be stronger than even the characters in the manga portrayed him to be. I mean, we spent the last year hoping that Boruto doesn't enter the battlefield because according to Koji, Jura would seize him in a flash and kill him. He has seen many permutations of this, all with the same ending. And yet, Boruto entered the battlefield in chapter 22 and that did not happen. Jura did not seize him in a flash. In actuality, Boruto put up a good fight and lasted pretty long, although his stamina wasn't enough to keep him going the entire time, I will say. But Koji was obviously wrong. But why? Now of course I know the future did change and that is also a factor in this analysis and I will get to that at some point, but I also feel like the power scaling is a bit different than what it was made out to be. Let's take Boruto versus Code for example. He dominated Code the entire time base to base, and yes, even after Code activated the Karma Seal. I know people tend to ignore this panel, but Boruto teleported behind him, I assume using FTG, and Code looked at Boruto. Their eyes met while Boruto was still standing upwards, and yet Boruto was able to bend over and land his Rasengan before Code, using his Karma Seal, was able to react to Boruto. This is a speed blitz at point blank range, and this is just base Boruto while Code has his Karma Seal active. At this point in the fight, Boruto is just superior to Code. And no, Code didn't tank Uzuhiko. This wasn't a full power Uzuhiko because Boruto wasn't trying to kill or damage him. He wanted to infect him with the Coriolis effect of the ability to extract information about the Ten Tails. That's all this was. So if Boruto really wanted to kill Code, he would be dead at this point. I doubt he would survive a regular Rasengan that was able to eviscerate the upper half of Hidori's body. So Boruto at this point is just overpowered because I hope you guys remember that Code is stated to be greatly above Jigen. So this puts Boruto at least greatly above Jigen as well. It's actually crazy. Now I guess one could argue that Boruto is being powered up by Uzuhiko, and I haven't really brought that analysis into the equation before this, but it is a possibility that Boruto having all of this energy surging through his body is also a speed amp, a power amp to him. This has always been the case in Naruto and Boruto. A character gets amped by external chakra. So I don't see why that wouldn't be the case here as well, even though it hasn't been stated. But it is a possibility that Boruto, when he's charged up with Uzuhiko and it's swirling around his body, is greater than Boruto when he's just in base. That is certainly a possibility. Now we also have Boruto versus the Shinju, which I think further backs up the point I'm trying to make here, because he's able to actually react and keep up to the Momoshiki Shinju, and then he was able to cancel out the Chidori by Hidori, which shows that there's some relativity between him and the Shinju. Though I will say that this narrative is kinda debunked later on in chapter 12, because Boruto is just shown to be outright superior to Hidori in this fight. Not only is he able to block his attacks with no problem whatsoever at point blank range, he's able to blitz him and knock him back using a simple wind style breakthrough. And it's so funny because Hidori doesn't even try to fight Boruto after this. He literally runs away, then summons the Claw Grimes to keep Boruto distracted while he goes after Sarada. He doesn't want the smoke with Boruto. Then while he's trying to devour Sarada, Boruto teleports behind him and slams him with a regular base Rasengan. Not a giant Rasengan, a massive Rasengan, no, it's just a normal Rasengan. And this surprisingly erased the top half of Hidori's shoulder, which also means that Boruto doesn't need Rasengan Uzuhiko to kill him. He can kill him with a massive Rasengan, which would of course cover his entire body. Though I think the reason why Boruto didn't use a massive Rasengan is because of his chakra reserves, because of course Boruto is never known to have massive amounts of chakra, at least outside of the Momoshiki state. And this of course was confirmed in the anime with Kakashi saying that Boruto can't use the giant Rasengan because of his chakra reserves. So Boruto of course has to conserve his chakra to save some to use FTG and all that lovely stuff, and I think he kinda compensates for that using Rasengan Uzuhiko because it's an external chakra source. And he also has to save chakra to suppress Momoshiki, I assume, because that was kinda stated back in part 1. So it makes sense why Boruto, who's a very smart character when it comes to tactics in battle, wouldn't waste his chakra using a massive Rasengan when he can just take chakra from the planet. With that said, Boruto versus Jura was kind of a trip, to be honest, because when he entered the fight, of course, Koji said that he would get blitzed and Jura would take him out in a flash. That clearly didn't happen. Boruto was able to actually land a Rasengan on Jura by teleporting behind him, and some would say blitz him. Of course, you could assume Jura was simply holding back or was caught off guard. In any case, Boruto showed his ability throughout the entire fight to be able to dodge Jura's attacks and even strikes from Jura himself using FTG. And this is really important, and I pointed this out in the review itself, but a character being able to put their hands together in front of another character that's trying to blitz them and then activate a jutsu is at the very least relative to that character, because of course if the character was that much faster than them, they wouldn't have been able to put their hands together to activate the jutsu in the first place. Jura would be able to nab Boruto in a flash, as Kashin Koji claimed that he would be able to do, but of course he wasn't, clearly shown in the manga. And this is made even worse by the fact that Boruto was able to dodge Jura's attacks and his abilities even without Flying Thunder God. He was able to do it by simply flying away and maneuvering through the sky. That's his movement speed. That has nothing to do with FTG. He's also shown the ability to keep up with Jura in actual combat speed. They have this panel here which shows Boruto and Jura exchanging punches, and Boruto is actually matching Jura, at least for a short period of time, because Boruto starts to get tired and Jura starts to overpower him. And this is very important to note because Boruto's stamina isn't as great as, let's say, Naruto, who has the Nine Tails that passively boosts his stamina through some mechanic that was actually stated in Naruto. So Naruto can actually go for longer than any natural human. Boruto's stamina is actually very limited, and this is made even worse because he has to suppress Momoshiki using his chakra, and chakra is created by what? Stamina. So as you can see in this fight, Boruto gets tired very quickly. He's huffing and puffing and he's blowing, and Jura makes note of this. He points out that Boruto is getting very tired. And this is also made worse by the fact that he has to be spamming FTG, which of course uses chakra. No idea how much it uses, but it does use chakra clearly. So this even takes a greater toll on his chakra reserves, which of course is powered by his stamina. But it's still fascinating that Boruto, before he got to this point where he starts to get tired, him at full power was able to keep up with Jura, even outside of FTG, which shows that Boruto at full power is relative to Jura. I think Jura has the simple benefit of having this massive chakra reserve of the 10 tails, which it seems to allow him to fight for longer. Shocking, makes sense. That's why the only two times Jura was able to land a hit on Boruto was one when Boruto allowed him to do it to charge up his Uzuhiko, which we're gonna get to later on in this video, and then when Boruto got tired later on in the chapter. Before that point, Jura wasn't able to touch him. And this is really important because I know some people are going to say that Jura is holding back, and this is very possible. But there's this moment in this chapter where Jura says something very interesting, and I kind of look at him very differently. Because of course, if a character is that much faster and stronger, they should be able to blitz that character and knock them out pretty easily. That of course didn't happen. And I'm not sure if it's because Jura is holding back or because he simply doesn't have the speed to do it. Because there's this moment in the chapter where he's kind of contemplating how he can actually catch Boruto. He's talking about, it's become so clear that the obvious preparatory moves of my Biju Bomb is the biggest drawback. And he then wonders if the long range sniping or the close range blasting would be more effective against someone like Boruto. He's trying to figure out how to catch him because he simply can't do it. Every time he tries to do it, Boruto teleports at FTG or Boruto flies off the way and moves or dodges or weaves or something. So he's having issues catching Boruto. If he could simply just speed blitz him and grab him, he would have done so. He simply can't do it. I mean, he tries multiple times, but it just doesn't work, which is also shocking to Jura himself. And then of course, when Boruto gets tired, that's when he was able to win the fight. Now, then there's the question about Uzuhiko, because Jura of course was able to tank it, and not just tank the force of the ability, but also somehow disabled the actual status effect of the ability, which is Coriolis. I have a video that goes in depth, it should be on screen if you guys want to learn about it. Go watch that one, but I'm not going to get into why he was able to negate it because that's not important to this video. The point of this one is to address the force of the ability and how it was able to tank it, and also why it got to that point. Because someone made a point that Jura tanked Uzuhiko because it wasn't a full power Uzuhiko. And I know that's a logical thing to think about, it's, a logical assumption, but it also doesn't make sense to me. Because of course, Boruto knows that Jura is the strongest of the Shinju. He also knows that Hidari was able to survive an almost full power Uzuhiko. So why would he think that a non-full power Uzuhiko would be effective against Jura? And it's not like Boruto didn't have time to make it a full power Uzuhiko. Jura wasn't approaching him, Jura was just standing there admiring the sword, saying that he was gonna break it. Boruto had enough time to keep chatting to Jura, which would have allowed him to make it a full power Uzuhiko by the time he's ready to use it. Now some would say that Boruto simply got emotional and he didn't want to break Sasuke's sword and that's why he did it. But I'm not sure if Boruto is the type of character that would literally jeopardize the fate of the world just to save a sword. I know it seems that way and it kind of makes sense, it's his master, but I feel like there's another reason why he did the Rasengan at that point in time. And I do also believe that this might not have been a full power Uzuhiko, and that's for one reason. Because if you look at Boruto when he's charging up Uzuhiko, the few times that he's done it before in the past, there's always swirls around his body. And even in the fight versus Hidari, a non-full power Uzuhiko was still swirling around Boruto's body even before it was ready to be used. So that shows that once Uzuhiko is even almost at full power, it does put the swirls around his body, and he still needs to charge it even for longer than that to get it to full power. Yet when Boruto used it versus Jura, the swirls didn't appear until the very last moment, and he used it immediately after this to teleport behind Jura and then slam him. So just purely based on what we've seen before, it is truly possible that this wasn't a full power Uzuhiko and Boruto rushed the ability, and it could be because he wanted to save the sword, but also because he thought it would have worked, not because it was powerful, but because he thought Jura would be affected by the Coriolis. So Boruto made a gamble, which I think it made sense for him to make, because there's no reason why he would have thought that Jura would be able to negate the ability. So he thought to himself, hey, I can save the sword and also take down Jura with the status effect of the ability in just one swoop, which should have been possible, but it wasn't. Now, my problem with this is Kashin Koji, and this is kind of a side tangent, but why was Boruto not aware that this wouldn't have worked? You'd think that Kashin Koji is trying to stop Boruto from entering the fight versus Jura, and the best way to accomplish this would be to tell him that his strongest ability, with this overpowered side effect, wouldn't work against Jura, so don't even think about it. And I think Kashin Koji is smart enough to do this, and he would have done this. And by the way, it's clear that Boruto didn't know this because he was surprised that Jura was able to negate the ability, it's on panel, so Boruto didn't know. And the only way this makes sense is if Kashin Koji also didn't know. Because I want you guys to remember again that Koji said that if Boruto entered the battlefield, Jura would seize him in a flash. That's what happened in all the futures that he saw. Obviously, Boruto getting to do all the things that he did, including using Rasengan Uzuhiko, isn't Jura seizing him in a flash, which means Koji didn't see this future. Which means that Boruto telling Kawaki about the future didn't just change the outcome of this fight, but also the entire fight itself. It's the butterfly effect. But I'm not sure if this means that Boruto is stronger in this timeline than he was before, or is it that Jura is just more laid back and he's just choosing to not grab Boruto in a flash as Koji said he saw. It is something very interesting to think about. By the way, this kind of expounds on Kashin Koji's prescience as well, because I had this conversation with another Boruto creator a few months ago, and he was of the opinion that Koji's prescience allows him to see infinite possibilities, in the sense that every action that has, of course, a reaction, he's able to see that. So let's say I'm in a fight, I could punch you with my right hand, punch you with my left hand, I could headbutt you, I could do multiple things, I could run away. There are multiple things I could do in a fight. And if you try to hit me, I could block with my right hand, block with my left hand, I could dodge the ability, I could run away, I could do multiple things. And he's of the opinion that Koji's infinite possible futures allows him to see all of those possibilities and what the outcome would be. But I don't think that's the case. I think he's able to see infinite possibilities, but only the possibilities that would actually manifest. So let's say I meet someone on the road, I could say hi, hello, hey, I could say hola in, Spanish. I could say multiple things. I even could start the conversation by saying, hey, what's up, let's go over there. You, what are you doing? I could say multiple things. All of those are possibilities, but that doesn't mean that all of those possibilities would manifest into a possible future. This would explain why Koji didn't see a future where Boruto used Rasengan Uzuhiko. It is possible for Boruto to use this even without him telling Kawaki about his limiters, but he didn't see a future where it occurred, which means that the existence of a possible action doesn't result in a possible future. And this, by the way, is proven by the fact that Koji didn't see a future where Boruto went to talk to Kawaki and told him about his limiters. This is a future that happened, which of course changed the following future. Yet when Koji used this prescience ability, which by the way he stated in the chapter that this was at least 6 days ago, he didn't see a future where this happened because he was wondering if Boruto told Kawaki something, which he wouldn't need to wonder about if he actually saw the future where it did occur. I mean, the dude outright says that he never saw this future outcome before, which means that he didn't see what created this future outcome. So clearly, Koji's ability doesn't allow him to see the result of every possible action a character can take, because if he did have the ability to see this, he would have just told Boruto to tell Kawaki about his limiters and then purposefully create this future where Boruto survives his fight versus Jura. So even though Koji has the ability to see infinite possible futures, it seems as if those futures are predetermined based on what destiny has deemed to be probable, which is why of course when a character knows about those futures, they can then change them. And that is why Kashin Koji needs updates on these future possibilities, because they can become something else at any point in time. Now with that said, I think we kind of veered off into the future possibility stuff, but I think it was relevant to kind of ascertain why Boruto used Uzuhiko in that instance, which could be attributed to his lack of knowledge on the future instead of him trying to overpower Jura, which I believe he knew that he wouldn't be able to do. But yeah, Boruto appears to be overpowered, man. This dude is keeping up with Jura majority of the fight even without FTG, which is absolutely amazing. And I know one could simply say that Jura is holding back, but that dialogue in the chapter where he's kinda trying to get Boruto but he can't get him just implies that he's trying but he isn't able to do it. Now of course, there's the possibility that Jura has more power deep down and he needs to reach to get that power, and that might happen later on of course, but I guess we'll see. With that said, that's it for the video. If you guys liked it, drop a like. If you're new, subscribe, and also consider becoming a member to support the channel. But yeah, I'll see you guys on the next one. Peace.